It's interesting how we allow the titles, the labels, and roles that we fulfill to determine who we are, when really that's not who you are. It's just what you do. Have you ever noticed that when you meet somebody for the first time or you get introduced to someone, everybody is always so curious? They're like, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Everybody always wants to know what you do, as if that paints this full and complete picture of who you are. And it's no wonder that we too get caught up in it, because we get so focused and fixated on fulfilling the duties and the task of those roles, the labels, the title, that we completely lose sight of who we are within them. And listen, I'm speaking from experience, because for the longest time, I mean, for years, I identified as a single mom. And for years, that's exactly what I was. And it wasn't until I declared something different that everything changed. So, friend, if you have found yourself in the middle of your life wondering why you don't know who you are, or feeling lost and disconnected from yourself, maybe you got caught up in a relationship, in a role, or some season of life, how do you get back to yourself? How do you find your way back? Well, somebody cue Jaheim, because we about to get into it. We can lose ourselves very unintentionally. It's usually not on purpose that you have lost yourself. And it's also very sneaky, a very gradual process that happens over time. And we are often just not paying close enough attention, or we haven't set an intention about who we will be within this life circumstance or this current life position. And it is just so easy to get caught up in fulfilling a role that you just naturally lose connection with yourself. It looks like saying yes to things that aren't yours to actually solve for or carry, but you decide to volunteer yourself anyway. It looks like wanting to fulfill a role to the best of your ability. So you pour all of your time, effort, and energy into it. You give it your own special brew of tea. And while you are so fixed and focused on doing your best in that role, that you just get disconnected from yourself and who you are and what's important to you right now during this season of your life. Or it just happens because of life circumstance. Sometimes things end up on your plate and you don't have a choice but to pick it up. But we are very quick to identify with our circumstances when that, again, is just not who you are. And I really learned this the hard way. It took me years to figure this out, because I used to identify myself as a single mom. As soon as somebody asked me to tell them about myself, that was the first thing I would say is, I'm a single mom. And for as long as that was my identifier, that is who I was. And I wondered why I wasn't in a relationship or on the track to get remarried, which I deeply wanted. But I was not inviting that into my life for as long as I was claiming and owning the identity as a single mom. It really did not change until I changed the way that I identified myself. And it's just so easy to do, friend. We do this nonchalantly. We do this very casually, if you will. So if you find yourself in this space, please don't give yourself a hard time. It is something that can even happen upon us just because we are not intentional about who we are while we fulfill a role, or we are just not giving enough attention to who we are and what we need in order to fulfill that role. We pour so much of ourselves into the things that we do that we can't help but see ourselves and identify ourselves by that. If you are a parent and you identify as a parent, you pour so much into your babies that it's hard to see yourself separate and apart from being a parent. If you value relationships, then you are doing your all to be the best that you can to show up in those relationships fully committed and fully present to give your best and be your best. And even who you become while you are with someone is very much tied to your identity. And when those relationships no longer work out, then it can leave you feeling lost, like you don't know who you are anymore without that person. And then you find yourself not just grieving the relationship, but also grieving who you were while you were in it. So, friend, please don't give yourself a hard time if you find yourself in this space. It is really just an invitation to get to know yourself now at this season and this stage of your life. And you can definitely get connected back to the best of you at any point in time. During my single mom era, it was so challenging because I wanted to get remarried again so badly. And I dated for a decade ish, friend. And I could not figure out why it was so hard for me to connect with someone that I could really have a serious long term relationship with. And it took me too long to realize that a part of the issue was I kept seeing myself as a single mom. And it wasn't until I declared, God made me a wife, that is when everything shifted. When I owned that I was made to be a wife, I was made to be somebody's rib, honey. And when I owned that, it shifted the way that I carried myself. It shifted what I accepted, what I allowed, what I tolerated. And it really shifted how I stood in front of someone who could potentially be a partner. I was so confident and matter of fact that God made me a wife, and it was just a matter of time before He gave me my husband. It was inevitable, and I wasn't accepting anything else. There was no other option. And that self assuredness is definitely a huge thing that attracted me to my husband, for sure, hands down. And so we often don't realize how we are identifying ourselves. And if that is even still really true to who we really truly are. I had to be a single mom for a period of time in my life. That was necessary. It was a role that I had to fulfill, but it wasn't who I was. It did not reflect who God made me to be. And if God isn't your jam, feel free to insert it with source, universe, whom it is that you believe in. Insert your belief, friend. But identity really was the key that shifted everything for me in my life because I stopped going on dates, being shy about my goal to date for marriage. I was no longer like saying it like, "Oh my gosh, is he going to be okay with this?" And if he says that he just wants to see where it goes, am I going to just be like, okay, and stick around and waste my time? And so I can see where this is going to go? No. Soon as I heard, let's see where this goes, that was my cue to exit stage left, even. That was just something that I was no longer going to tolerate. But that's because having an identity of a wife, she doesn't tolerate that. So, where in your life are you still identifying with something that really does not reflect who you really are? And I mean, who you really truly are, who you were made to be, because you were not made to settle for less in any aspect of your life, really. And if you find yourself in that space, it's time to really ask yourself that question with no shade, no shame, and no judgment. Grant yourself some grace, but just be honest with yourself without putting yourself down or degrading yourself. That is just not necessary to recognize where you have been and who you are at this moment, and then deciding from that place how you want to carry forward and what truly is the identity that you want to live into. And now let's talk about how you start finding your way back to you. I always encourage my clients to journal. And one of the main reasons why journaling is important, because if I did not journal every day, it would be like me cutting off that thread back to the best of myself. Journaling gives you that opportunity to connect with yourself and really understand what's going on with you. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? What's happening in your life? How can you relieve some of the stress that you're carrying if you don't have an outlet to express it? Journaling is amazing for that, but it also allows you to get clear on what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how you want to proceed with things in your life. So, journaling for me is a lifeline. It is the way that I stay connected to myself and even to the best of myself, because sometimes we all know how it is. We can all give into that part of ourselves that wants to give somebody the top flight business. But when you journal, you give yourself an opportunity to handle things as your best self and not the self that's going to have to apologize for it later on. So connect back to the things that light you up, the things that bring you joy, the things that you enjoy doing. So often we're so focused in on adulting and parenting and doing all the things that we forget that we have a life to live. We forget that fun should also be a part of this equation. What is a old hobby that you used to love doing that you don't do anymore? Is that something that you want to revisit? Do you want to bring in a fresh new element and learn how to do it in a different way? Maybe do it like a 2.0 version of that hobby. Is there something that you've been wanting to try to explore and you just haven't made time to do that yet? So, what are some things that you have been meaning to do that you just have not done for yourself? Because it is in the living that you truly get to get more of a clear picture of who you are right now. It isn't that you don't know who you are. You just haven't given yourself an opportunity to get to know yourself in this season of life. We often think that if we knew who we were in our 20s, that we're just supposed to know who we are in our 30s, 40s, and so on. And we are constantly giving ourselves a new version of ourselves to meet. We are constantly being given invitations to get to know who we are. Our life circumstance does create a version of ourselves. The single mom version of me is definitely different than the version of me today. I am happily remarried. My kids are grown and gone. So, who I was 10 years ago is drastically different than who I am today. And there is nothing wrong with the past seasons and versions of yourself. But have you given yourself an opportunity to get to know you here in this new space? And so many times we are trying to run old plays from past seasons into the current seasons of our lives, and it just doesn't work here. And that is okay. Again, it's just an invitation to get to know you right here and right now. So, where can you create some space to connect to the best of who you are right now? This isn't just about the next version of yourself that you want to become. Because, yes, our future self, she's constantly calling us forward, and we love her. And we also have to love this version of ourselves that is here today, because your future version of yourself, she would not be as great as she is without the greatness that you embody right here today. So connect back to the best of yourself. And if you need some help with that, I will make sure to leave a link for you to schedule a little time, friend, a little one on one, me and you know what I mean? And we can help you get some clarity around that, because it really is a beautiful invitation to get to know who you are today. Every version of yourself has gotten you here. We love her. And it's important to love who you are today just as much as all those other versions of yourself. Every iteration, honey, love them all. So it isn't that you lost yourself. It's just easy to get buried underneath all of the titles, the labels, the roles, and responsibilities, honey. It is easy to get so caught up in doing life that without having that common thread that links you back to yourself, without being intentional about that and paying it attention, it's easy to get disconnected. So please do not give yourself a hard time. It's just an invitation inviting you to get connected back to you. Ooh, friend. Yes. So let me go ahead and give you a journal prompt to help you do just that. What identity have you been living that no longer reflects who you actually are? And who would you be if you gave yourself permission to declare something different? Ooh, friend. Yes. I love this one because this is all about exploring. Allow yourself the freedom, friend. And with this particular prompt, I really invite you to just allow yourself to free flow. And then in a day or two, come back and revisit this and see if it still rings true, or see if there's something new that's even continuing to emerge, because there's so much beauty and self discovery here that's just for you. Ooh, friend, I love it. And meet me in the comments. Tell me, what is one thing you are declaring about yourself today that's different from what you've been living? Ooh, friend, yes. Meet me in the comments, girl. We have got to continue the conversation there because this is just too good. Friend, yes. I hope that you love this episode just as much as I loved making it for you. And like I always like to do at this time, I like to remind you, to know me is to know I love myself so much. I don't play about me. And if you hang out with me long enough, you will love yourself so much that you won't play about you either. Okay, friend? I cannot wait to connect with you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video tomorrow.